Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Discord exclusive right here on Our Nation Sports Show. I'm your host, John. As always, I am joined by Stevie Wonder himself and Carl Roberts. How are we doing tonight, guys?
Good. How you guys
going on?
doing?
Let's do this.
And guys, there's many guests who you always look forward to talking to. You never think in a million years you would actually be able to pull it off. And one of those guests are here right now with us. Former NFL quarterback, now works at SiriusXM as an NFL analyst. Mr. Ryan Leaf is joining us right now. Mr. Leaf, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. First question we want to get to, and we ask this to all of our guests. 2020 has not been a real pleasant year, and going into 2021. How is coronavirus and the whole pandemic thing treated with you?
It's been difficult, like anybody else, right? It's there's a ton of fear, and what you don't know is based around fear, and we had no control or know what's going on. My work with ESPN went away because you just can't travel, can't call games. My speaking engagement, my livelihood kind of went away. So you at first, really kind of get defensive and try to, close ranks and make everything okay. But what ultimately it does is it makes you truly understand and accept that you can't control a damn thing. You can only control how you deal with something or how you react to something. So I took the second half of 2020 and just made it my own, made it about my son, made it about my health, my physical health. And 2021 then became about, okay, I'm not going to allow, my livelihood, my jobs to be affected by something that I can't control. So I'm just going to go out and do it. I'm starting my own, YouTube show here on March 1st. I sold a podcast. I could just, from the work side of things, we're making it go our way. So that's how we dealt with it. And in recovery, that's exactly how you do anything, right? You can't control anything. You can only control your part in all this. And so, luckily for me, it was an opportunity to reinvest and kind of reset that foundation leading into 2021, and I'm really grateful for it.
Nice. So, Mr. Leaf, my question for you is, from the time you were playing to now, how do you feel the NFL has changed? Has it changed for the better or for the worst? In your honest opinion,
it's never going to be get worse. I mean, football's the most watched and institutional sport in our country. So I don't think it's gotten worse. I feel like it's changed significantly. It's become about scoring points and offense, and defense has been really regulated to just kind of an afterthought in terms of what they're able to do. So that's been tough, but I mean, you learn. Quarterbacks have been able to make the jump from college to pros much easier because the game has become more wide open, kind of like the college game. Coaches are more open-minded. They're more about not imposing their will on somebody, but rather fitting to their best players' attributes, what they can do well. So every year I enjoy watching it. The college football game for me is a different story. That's a different story because of the alienation of so many teams when you limit a chance at playing for a championship down to really 5 or 6 teams in the country every year, and people just don't enjoy that.
Right.
All right, Stephen.
Throughout your entire career, as far as an active player, whether it was college or the NFL, what are some of your favorite games or memories of your playing career?
Well, college, in particular, just because of what we were able to accomplish as a team. We hadn't won a championship and gone to a Rose Bowl since, I think, 1931 it was. So it had been 67 years when we had done it. Those games, the game to get to the Rose Bowl when we beat Washington, our rival, that was amazing. There were a lot of great college football games. In the pros, not so many. I think I only won 4 games as a starter.
Right.
whenever we played Denver, for whatever reason, whenever we played the Broncos, I played really well, in particular in Mile High Stadium. So I tend to look back on Broncos games as with some positives.
Good.
Or Steven?
I was going
Yeah.
to start it over to you.
As far as like, you know, your college season, I mean, man, I mean, 97, I mean, that was a great season for you. Yeah. Runner up to Charles Woodson for the Heisman Trophy in 97. Talk about, you know, that great season that you had in 97.
Well, it was, you know, I got a lot of credit, but our team was amazing. I had a group of wide receivers who were nicknamed the Fab Five, and they're five, you know, All-Americans is who they were. And then I had an offensive line that protected me like crazy, an unbelievable running back, defense that made big plays all year long. I had a great coach. Our fans were, you know, I didn't do anything really special. They helped me a ton, made me better. I got a lot of the accolades. But in doing so, I was able to represent Washington State University, which was a great honor.
Right.
Well, Ryan,
Yeah, absolutely. John?
One thing I've preached on this show, and I preach to these guys behind the scenes, is you have to have a good offensive line in order to be a good quarterback. Doesn't matter if you're in the college ranks or in the NFL. Would you agree with that, or am I really off on that?
No, it's a team. It's the most team sport there is, and yet for whatever reason, quarterbacks get saddled with win and loss records. Like, what about the center? What's his win loss record as a starter? You know, no one goes there. It's football is the quintessential team sport, because if 10 of the guys are doing what they're supposed to and the 11th guy isn't, you know, he's making a mistake, most likely you're not going to be successful. It just, you know, at the collegiate level, you can probably get away with it a little bit better with some super talented players. I remember when Cam Newton's season down in Auburn for that 1 year where they won a national championship, he was probably one of the most dominant college players I'd ever seen. But I mean, it can't be done. You know, you got to have, the offensive line is the biggest nucleus of it all. All five guys got to be working together to make it go.
Well, I bring it up especially after what we saw at the Super Bowl this past year with Kansas City, and how it seemed like when Eric Fisher went down with the injury prior to the Super Bowl, it seemed like they didn't have that next man up mentality.
Oh, I think they had the next man up mentality. I just didn't think they had the next man up, because, you know, talent by the end of the year, you got a 53-man roster. It's, you know, you replace a guy like Eric Fisher. That's, I think the guy that stepped in, you know, he was ready. You know, he wanted it. But there's a disparity in talent from a first overall pick, right, at the left tackle position, and then losing Mitchell Schwartz during the year at right tackle, right? That's significant. It just elevated Shaq Barrett and that defensive front to do the things that they've been able to do and got better at all year long. So yeah, I thought that was one of the bigger storylines going into it. I just couldn't step away from how good Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes had looked all year long, and I didn't put enough emphasis on how depleted that offensive line was and how difficult it was going to be for them to stop that defensive front.
Okay.
Ryan, real quick, I saw that you had a major surgery from a tumor, benign tumor. Now, did they consider that from your playing days that you had that tumor, since it was by the brainstem, or they have no idea?
I mean, it's a trauma-related tumor. So now the NFL, of course, won't take any ownership for that, because in doing so, they would have to admit that that playing football can lead to head trauma.
Right.
But, you know, when diagnosed, I got it dealt with. It's in remission. I have to go back in for annual checkups to make sure there's no new growth. But I feel blessed that I'm here and that we found it, and great doctors helped put it in remission, and just give me another feather in my cap in terms of a story to help be of service to other people when I share my story.
Right. How long were you actually laid up for with that?
Not as much as you are laid up when you have orthopedic surgeries. It's amazing. You can be in for a 14-hour craniotomy on your brain.
Mhm.
And then you're out of commission for a couple days, and then you're back up walking around, and before you know it, it's like it's different when you have a shoulder surgery or a knee surgery or something like that. You could be
Absolutely.
you could be laid up for 6 weeks.
Yeah, that
Being
I know.
being
I've had
immobile.
Yeah.
2 knee surgeries, so I know that feeling. Now, also too, I see that you wrote a book, in regards to your year with the Washington State. Can you go into a little bit about that for our listeners?
Well, I told you a little earlier about what we had accomplished. It's something that hadn't happened since 1931, so it's a special story. And those 4 years at Washington State were the greatest 4 years of my life. It was the best decision I ever made to go play in the little town of Pullman, Washington, play in the Pac-10 conference, play with the guys that I did. So it's just a bunch of stories from my time with my buddies, the people that made tremendous impacts in my life while I was there, who continue to make impacts in my life. It's catered mostly to Washington State alums and fans because of that great year, but it can reach a much larger audience in terms of human frailty and humanity and humility and all those things that come with being a star athlete and being placed on a pedestal.
Nice.
Steven?
As far as being at a NFL game, we know that when you're there live and you hear and you see those thousands upon thousands of fans rocking those stadiums, what are some of your favorite games that you have attended as an analyst and covering a game, or as a fan?
Well, I don't go to games unless I'm covering them. I hate going to football games now unless I'm working. I watch it as an analyst, so I want to be on my couch with the big screen on so I can like super get in focus.
Mhm.
I doubt I'll ever go to a football game again unless I'm working it or my son's playing it, so that's the honest to God truth that I'm a football nerd. I want to be, I don't want anybody to be talking in my ear. I don't want to be at a Super Bowl party where somebody's talking loudly or spilling drinks or something. I want to focus in and nerd out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Ryan, you bring that up. Are you the type of person where you're sitting there, you're watching a game, and all of a sudden they go for a pass, and you're sitting there going, "Why the hell are they going for that? They could have gone for this."
Sometimes I'm not super critical or judgmental. I'll ask the question, why would he make that decision? Because I made plenty of poor decisions, especially in the NFL, where I threw the football sometimes. So I'm always just looking on why somebody might have done that, and that usually comes from that's trying to inform the listener or the viewer, what just happened and maybe why it happened or what the individual may have been thinking in that moment.
Yep.
Well, the area I want to look at now, 98 NFL draft. You and Peyton Manning were considered the top 2 quarterbacks headed into
No,
that
we were
draft.
considered the top 2 picks.
The
Period.
top 2 picks, yeah.
Not even the top 2 quarterbacks.
What was it like being in the room with him and that whole moment, that whole night?
Well, it was different then. It wasn't at night. We weren't in the same room. It was a much different scenario, but it was exactly where I thought I was supposed to be, right? I was supposed to be the first or second pick. I looked at us as the pick 1A and 1B. Where would you rather go? I'd rather go to San Diego. Beach, money, babes. That sounded so much better than Indianapolis, in my opinion. So, that's the way I was viewing things then. I thought I was destined to be great, and it was a foregone conclusion. I was going to play for 16 to 20 years and win a couple Super Bowls, ride off into the sunset and do Old Spice commercials. That was going to be my life, but doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how good you are. Doesn't matter about anything else. Life doesn't work out that way.
No, it doesn't. Carl?
I lost my train of thought there. I'm sorry.
Steven?
I want to get to, honestly, the most inspiring part about you as a person. Man, reading your redemption story, brother, it was very inspiring. You have overcome so much in your life, and just reading what you've been through and all this stuff, and just for our listeners that don't know about your story, if you don't mind sharing some of your story, because your story, your testimony, it needs to be heard.
Well, first I'll say thank you for saying that, but um, I don't think it's all that interesting of a story. I think there are millions of people who walk this earth that are just like me, going through the same thing, and their
Right.
story is just as important.
Right.
Simply because I've played a silly sport shouldn't make it, more courageous or, whatever. But, it's life. Life's hard. Life's not fair. It's how you deal with it that matters. And I dealt with it incredibly poorly for a long, long time. And I think that that for me is the most rewarding thing in all of this, is that, I'm just not talking about it, right? I'm the best apology you can have is changed behavior. I really believe that to be true. People talk out their ear all the time about who they're going to be or what they're going to do or how they're going to change. But unless they actually go out and change those behaviors and become a different person in terms of lifestyle, all of that,
Yep.
it really doesn't matter. And so that's probably the proudest thing I am about all this. Proudest thing I ever did was get sober. Be a sober father. Be an honest member of my community. Those are the proudest moments of my life now.
Awesome.
You got a second chance to redeem yourself in the eyes of your family and the community.
I don't like the word redeem either, because, mine was just very public, and I'm lucky because it saved my life, probably, right? There are tons of individuals that go through what I went through in the dark, and they just disappear and we never hear from them again. So I don't like the word redeeming or redemption, because it's not that. It's just life. I'm a flawed human being, just like everybody else, trying to be better every single day.
Right.
It's just been more heavily documented. So I don't like those adjectives necessarily. It is what it is, and it takes what it takes.
That's right.
So getting off that question there, when you're not doing an analytic job, what do you like to do on the side as a hobby?
I love golf. I try to play every single day. During the pandemic and quarantine, I live in Los Angeles, and the whole city's been shut down pretty much for 8 months. But luckily, my golf course hasn't, and I really would have gone nuts, I think, if I wasn't able to get out for 4 or 5 hours a day in nature and be social. It's socially distanced, but you're still able to be social, which I think has saved me a ton.
That's one thing
Love
that
golf,
they did out here in Jersey. They shut it down.
Love fly fishing when I get back to Montana, where I'm from. And now I have a 3-year-old boy now, so he's my favorite hobby. Playing with him,
feeling,
whatever he wants.
I'm in the fatherhood myself.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say little guy anymore. He's 15 now, but he'll still always be my little guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he loves fishing, crabbing.
Where are you guys located?
I'm in New Jersey.
I am in North Carolina.
And John is in New York.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're all East Coast guys, though.
Yep. Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
One thing I do want to get to, though, because in doing some looking up about with you, it says here you're the program ambassador for the Transcend Recovery community.
I was.
Oh, you
I was
were
for a while. Yeah, I'm no longer doing that with them. I'm doing some more things outside of that. I feel like on a larger platform, but they were the company that initially gave me an opportunity to give back and be of service. They're based here in Los Angeles and do great work.
Well, that was going to be my question. Is just can you tell listeners a little bit about them? But you kind of answered that question before I could even ask it. But Stephen?
Yes. As far as for this upcoming off season, what free agent player do you think that could be the biggest missing piece for a team that made the playoffs this past season? Because as we all know, the Buffalo Bills had a really good run this year, and they were one game away from the big game, the Super Bowl. What free agents, like I said, players out there, do you think could be a big piece to a team that needs that missing piece to make them a more complete team?
Well, speaking of Buffalo, I appreciate your enthusiasm by saying they were one game away, but they weren't. I mean, that one good game could be a mile or 10 miles because they weren't even close
Right.
to getting over Kansas City. No one is. No one's even close to getting over Kansas City in the AFC right now. So until somebody figures out a way to challenge them, it's just going to be Mahomes and Andy Reid, playing for the Super Bowl every single year. And that's unfortunate for a lot of great teams like the Bills, like you're talking about. The Chargers, you got the Raiders, you got the Steelers, all these teams that are just kind of playing second fiddle right now. And maybe not necessarily a free agent, but the release today of J.J. Watt, I think, is going to play a huge impact. I really do. Now, the fact that there was no trade equity that anybody would depart for JJ tells me a little that what people are seeing on film now and his past injuries the last few years are limiting. But it also tells me that maybe Houston was just trying to get too much for him in return, and teams were like, hey, we know what you're going to do. You don't have the ability to hang on to that contract. You're going to cut him anyway, so we're not going to play that game. So I think maybe JJ Watt. Buffalo were able to squeeze him up, within the same division, if Tennessee or Indianapolis. I think JJ would like that opportunity to play the Houston Texans twice a year to kind of, throw it back in their face a little bit. So right now, I feel like that signing, whoever does that, is essentially like a free agent signing, in my opinion. But I really think this offseason is going to be more about trades, because there are people who are unloading a ton of contract weight with some pretty, special players in particular at the quarterback position.
Yes, and speaking of the quarterback position, Deshaun Watson, my goodness, that is going to be a huge topic for the offseason. Does he get traded from the Houston Texans?
Well, as further we get into the offseason and teams become more desperate, they may absolutely, send a king's ransom to Houston. But if I'm Houston, the one thing you're always looking for, no matter what, to build from is a franchise quarterback. And if you're telling me you're willing to step aside from that to try to do it all over again, I mean, it's 50-50 at best. Just look at the Peyton and me scenario, right? I mean, we both were thought to be can't miss guys. And you're telling me that if you're going to get rid of Deshaun Watson and then go back into the roulette machine, if I'm them, I'm not letting him go. I'm going to say, hey, this is your contract. You live up to it. You signed an extension a year ago for a lot of money. I don't necessarily know how fractured the relationship is. It seems like it's untenable, but we're going to find out. If I'm ownership or I'm administration there in Houston, I'm not trading him or letting him go anywhere. He's a franchise quarterback, and that's the hardest thing to find in that game, because you have to have one to win a championship.
Yes,
absolutely. Mr. Leaf, before we go further, are you okay if we stay on a little bit longer? It's up to you.
I gotta go at 3:00.
Okay, so let's go to the two. One of the things we do on the show, we have people who ask us questions through our server. So
Okay.
let's just go with the two questions, and then we have one final question before we wrap up. Carl?
All right. Yep.
So real quick, we have Kevin in Massachusetts, who's also known as our stat man. He's got two questions for you, sir. Who do you think is the best quarterback currently? And also, two, if there was a reverse draft where the player out of college picked a team instead, what team would you have wanted to play for?
I'd probably say Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback playing right now, but guess what? Tom Brady went in there and outplayed him, truly. So there's no one better than Tom Brady until Tom Brady decides to hang him up. Period. Just there isn't. So he'll be the best player in the NFL until he decides to hang him up, and until then, everybody's just going to be, chasing his coattails. As for what team that would have been, it's easy. I grew up a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I wanted to be Terry Bradshaw. So if I could have manipulated and found my way to the perfect organization, it would have been the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And then, if you want, instead of having the gentleman call in, I can ask his question right now.
Yeah.
We have Mark's in New Mexico. He goes, in your playing day, who is your favorite go-to guy that you love throwing to?
His name was Chris Jackson. He was a former basketball player that just joined me at Washington State, and we hit it off. And now all five of the guys and me had a good relationship, but me and Chris, me and CJ, just in the biggest moments, in the biggest games, we were locked in, and he was one heck of a fun receiver to throw to. I wish I could have done it in the NFL with him.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. If Joe's question is quick.
Yeah, he said he'll be real brief.
Okay, Ryan, we do have one person who wants to call in. It'll be very brief, and final question, and then we'll wrap up. Joe, you can unmute yourself and comment. You're on with Ryan Leaf.
Hey, Ryan. First off, I've been following you since college over at Washington State, and I'm glad that, everything's going good for you now, and everything's
Appreciate
going
that.
real well, because I was pulling for you over in Washington State, honestly, when the Heisman voting was coming up, but I was only 12, so sorry. Hey, you got to
Thank you
get
very
me.
much.
But I'm also, unfortunately, a disgruntled Jets fan. So I got to ask, with the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, do you believe that the Jets should go after a quarterback, or do you believe the Jets should go ahead and try to find ways to get more draft picks?
Well, they can look for more draft picks, but I also think that they take the best player in the draft at that point. That's Penei Sewell. Bookend him with with Becton and keep Sam Darnold. That's the way I would do it if I was a general manager. But in the NFL now, the turnover that exists, especially with head coaches, and then wanting the rebirth with a new quarterback, I expect them to probably figure out some sort of trade or release of Sam Darnold and ultimately draft one of those 2 young quarterbacks in Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. Which I don't know if either one of them are any better than what Sam Darnold was coming out of college. So, they're in a difficult spot, and hopefully they make the right decision.
I appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great day, pal.
You bet. Thank you.
All right, Ryan, final question, and this is a non-football question. This is a question we ask all of our guests. There's a guy who we all listen to on SiriusXM called Dave LaGreca. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Who?
Dave LaGreca?
He does. No. Okay. He has gone on a pizza rant a couple of times, and we've asked our guests this constantly. What are your thoughts on pineapple on pizza?
Terrible.
Right?
Okay.
There you go.
That works out great for
He's
us.
always saying that it's just bread, sauce, and cheese. That's it. Nothing
go.
else.
Simple as that.
I'm I like a little meat on my pizza. With my garnish is black olives. I like sliced black olives. I tend to go that route if I do put anything else on a pizza. But yeah, pineapple is awful. Don't do it, everybody. Terrible. Terrible.
Especially since you actually live out in LA, so you would get that style of pizza out there.
Probably. It's it's kind of like Hawaiian thought process, in my opinion. Anytime you think about pineapple, I just hate it. I hate pineapple, period. I mean, it's just me, but I just hate it. Don't put it on pizza. I won't eat it off a pizza, so I'm certainly not going to put it on a pizza.
Ah.
Ryan, thank you so much. This was an honor talking to you today.
You bet.
Where can our listeners find you on social media, and what do you have coming up?
At Ryan D. Leaf on all social media platforms. The Ryan D. Leaf Show starts March 1st. Subscribe on YouTube. We're gonna be kind of in the vein of the Pat McAfee Show a little bit, but
Nice.
a little different mindset. And then look for the podcast, my podcast Bust, coming out right around draft time, people.
Definitely.
Definitely, we'll definitely.
And like I said, the challenge is there for you to come out to Jersey for a round of golf.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a great day.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Ryan.
you, sir.
Ri-
Thank
you,
you.
Ryan Lee. For Carl, I'm John, and for Steven, this has been another installment of Our Nation Sports Show. You can catch us every Thursday night, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. You can also catch The Nation Show Saturday, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. But until next time, see you soon.